So welcome to this 9 webinar. So this was initially planned for last week. It has been postponed to this week. I hope that it was suitable for all of you. Like usual, the webinar will last more or less 1 hour. We will try to stick within this time. It is recorded, the slides and the recording will be put online. And today we have the pleasure to welcome an external participant. So first we will hear about the version 3 of the system, which was delivered last week. It will be presented by the consortium, and then we will listen Gerhard Triebnig from EOX, who will tell us the progress which has been made in the EO-Widget project. And the last topic of this webinar will be an open call for new use cases, which will be launched just after this webinar. And so we will explain a bit more what you can expect and what you can submit us. So I propose that you mute yourself during the webinar. You can use the chat if you have burning questions during the presentations, and after each talk, we open the floor to questions, either by reading the chat or you just unmute and you can discuss directly with the presenters. So let's start with 5 minutes of summary of Sen4CAP. Even if you probably know it already. So the Sen4CAP was at the beginning an ESA project that aimed at demonstrating the added value of Sentinel data for the new CAP. So this was organized in 2 main phases. First phase of design, prototyping, and then demonstration at national scale of what was developed before. So during all these 2 phases, we tried to put a lot of emphasis on the validation, the fitness to use assessment by the paying agency. And so at the end of these 2 years, through all these interactions we had with the paying agencies, at the end we had a good user community with which we were able to demonstrate a Sen4CAP toolbox at national scale and in real time, so really along the season. This was the end of the project because we got some extension from ESA, which was supported also by DG Agri and GRC to facilitate the uptake of the tool by the users. At the beginning, we had a 1-year extension, and so this is during the extension that we started the trainings, the webinars, that we put in place, the forum, all these tools that you know very well. And more recently, we got a second extension until the end of 2022 to support a bit the evolution of the system. And so we will discuss more this evolution in the slides. So basically, the Sen4CAP system. So this is a system which is generating a lot of markers from Sentinel and from Sentinel-1, markers at the parcel level, and the parcel boundaries comes from the subsidy applications provided by the paying agent. These markers are computed for each date and along the season, and they are stored in a database which is just growing during the season. I'm sorry, but there is someone unmuted. Can you mute, please? Thank you. And so these markers database within the project were demonstrated through three products, which were the crop type map, the grassland mowing product, and a product to monitor specific agricultural practices. But of course, these markers can be used for many other applications. They can support many other checks or indicators. And this is why in the last version of the system, the version 2, we proposed to directly interface with the markers database through an API, and each one can develop new algorithms or tools directly connecting to the database. And the new use cases that will be developed during the next year will rely on the same principle. We will base the use cases on the markers database. So this is the open source Sen4CAP system diagram that you know well. So the version 3 was delivered last week, and the two main features of this version 3 are about the markers database processors and the visualization tool. I will not tell you more because it will be presented in detail right after me. Just to remind you that the Sen4CAP system is running on all diases, portable on all diases, but it can also be operated locally. And now we are trying to Dockerize the main components to make the installation and updates easier. These are the different components which the existing software, open source software that we use to build the Sen4CAP system. And this is basically how it is running. So at the beginning of the season, you have to just provide the main parameters, your area of interest, the monitoring period, and if you want to use Landsat 8 on top of the Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2 sensors. And you have also, during the season, to upload your subsidy application and some configuration tables, some parameters if you want to run not only the markers, but if you want to run also the crop type classification or the grassland mowing detection or the monitoring of some IFAP practices. So far we had 370 downloads. This is before the delivery of the version 3. We had the chance to interact with many paying agencies, either downloading directly the Sen4CAP system on the website or testing it through virtual machines. You have some tools to interact with us. The forum is probably the main one. We try to organize regular webinars. We can also have some question and answer sessions if needed. And before we had some training sessions. With the COVID, it was a bit stopped. With the version 3 and the new use cases, we will see how we can reactivate a bit this channel of interaction. And so that's it for the overview. I guess there is no burning question on that. And so I propose to move to the next topic, so which will be presented by my colleague Diane and by Laurențiu from CS Romania. And so Diane, if you want.
Yeah. Hello to all of you. So I will explain you what's the new version and what's the main new functionalities in this new version. But first, I wanted to show you about the previous version that were released from the first version, the beta version in May 2019. Which were only available for the paying agency, the pilot paying agency in the Sen4CAP system. And then we had a first version released at the end of 2019. So the more and more people can access the system. But we had to really consolidate this first version because we had some bugs. And we made it available also for Sen2Core pre-processing system, and we put the system so that it's a bit more stable with some into a Docker container. This January we released the version 2, and this evolution allows to the user to use a marker database, as Sophie explained, and we also implement a tillage processor, which is used in the agricultural practices processor, and the Dockerization really go forward there. But now we have the version 3, so yeah, which was released last week. And so we are really excited by this new version, and I hope you will be too. And so we have a really new interface, web interface, and the visualization of the products are really improved with the raster product and the vector. So the subsidy application that you will be able to visualize directly on the product tab of the web interface, and some addition in the marker database. So in this new version interface, we have a configuration that is really. Can you go back to the previous slide, Sophie? Sorry. Yeah. So the configuration, which is really improved and added to the web interface, and we have also secured the services so that you can access the database and the interface more securely. And there is also the Dockerization of the Sentinel-2 and pre-processing and the grassland mowing processor that were Dockerized, and some things change a bit, so that so for example, the LPC is more resilient in presence of invalid geometries, and we also fixed some small bugs. For example, in the L4 markers files, there was some mismatch in the column names that were fixed. So how it looks like in reality? So now you can access the system with the pore in the name of the system, and it's fully implemented in HTML5 and JavaScript, and you will have to access the system as with the web interface as shown in the slide, and then you have the new sites display. So there is the new configuration tab that I will explain just now. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Sophie. So the system configuration is now directly on the web interface, and you have access to the most of the database that was already present in the system, but now directly from the web interface. And you have general configuration, which is, for example, the naming convention, or the related to the the Sentinel-2 pre-processing, and where you can choose either if you want to choose the Maya or Sen4CAP algorithm for the pre-processing, and so on. There is also the configuration for the processor. For example, with the crop type map, you can modify the main parameters for the whole system, but also specifically for each site. You can change the parameters specifically for each site by selecting the cross just next to the parameters, and change it for the site. Yeah. For example, with I put an example on the slide with the minimum number of Sentinel-1 pixel, which is for the moment at 1 pixel, and you can change it, for example, into 3 pixels if you want to only monitor a bit bigger parcels. So, and how the raster looks like. So you can go to the next slide, Sophie, please. Yeah, so that was the example I gave. So that's how it looks like in the product tab knob. No, so we have the number of products available for each type of product, and you can select one product, and the visualization allows you to zoom in and to have a deeper analysis of the quality of the image, but also the values there. And on top of the raster image, you can visualize the vector data. So that's how it looks like when you zoom. And then you can select also the LPLS when it's uploaded. So the vector data are available directly in the visualization. For the moment, it's a single symbology, but we hope to improve it. And when selecting one parcels, you are able to see all the markers that are computed for these parcels. Either the and I will go a bit into the markers that are available after. And so when you have a first preview of the markers, but when clicking on this preview, you can display the whole monitoring period with all the markers that are available and selecting the one that you want to analyze a bit in details. And you can also export the chart if you want to have a closer look. So what's new in this marker database? So it's really more complete now that we have the Sentinel-2 tiles. So before we had the Sentinel-1 single dates acquisition by orbits that were extracted, and also the biophysical variables. But now we have also the Sentinel-2 bands. So all the bands are extracted for each acquisition and for each tiles. And so also we have also the mean and the standard deviation that are extracted by parcels. And those Sentinel-2 acquisition extraction needs to be configured, as I explained, in the configuration tab, for example. And in the marker database 3, there is also an evolution. So before we had to launch it with the import of some configuration tables specifically for each parcels, so for each field, and you had to launch it with the L4C processor, and now you can launch it from the MDB1, and the parcels are selected based on the lagging cover, and the period of monitoring for the harvest I used from the monitoring period of the site. So that's weekly value of the 5 markers of the harvest that are available in the marker database. And the marker database 2 and 4 do not have any change for the moment, but we also add the valid pixels. So we count the number of valid pixels per parcels for each acquisition, and it has also need to be activated in the configuration tiles. It's not by default in the system, in the extraction. So I will let the floor to Laurentiu, that will explain to you how we securize the service and how and the changes.
Thanks, Diane. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So if you've used the system before, you know that we did not install by default an HTTPS certificate, so your data would have been transferred unencrypted over the internet. And generally, we advise to not expose the project web interface over the internet. And there were some solutions for that, but now because we re-implemented the web interface, we can support HTTPS directly from the application services from our system. So basically, if you have an HTTPS certificate, you can edit the file you see on the slide and put in the path to the certificate, and then HTTPS will work automatically. Of course, you can, if you are more experienced in system administration, you can still use a reverse proxy like Nginx or Apache and do the TLS termination that way. And that's still a good solution. But now you also have this option. So I think we can go to the next slide. Now we also publish on Docker Hub some images for Maya and Sen4CAP. For Maya, we have 3.2.2, which we still use by default, and 4.2.1 and 4.3.1. You can pick either of those, so you can change the implementation. And we also have Sen4CAP, we have versions 2.8 and 2.9, I think. But if you use Maya, keep in mind that you will need to provide the configuration files. Like you still need to copy them to have them available on disk. And we have some in the installation package, but those are not in the Docker image. Also, if you want to switch to try Maya 4.2, keep in mind that we were not able to use it for Landsat 8. And we did not validate properly the system with that version yet because of this problem. We still suggest using Maya 3 by default. And also the grassland mowing processor is now, it's not installed with Miniconda packager anymore, but there is a Docker image available for it.
Oh yeah, you can continue.
Sorry. All right, I'll do this one slide. So there's, of course, in the new web interface, there are still some known issues. One of them, and this is quite common actually in the remote sensing area, that the reflectance products are not gamma corrected, so they will look to, they can be, can appear to be too dark. That's because the reflectances are linear, but the eye and the computer screens do not work like that. So they might not be pretty, but it's what you would see if you were to open the files in QGIS or in another viewer. There might be some website display issues on Safari. We tested, we could not really test on that browser. If you are interested in the L4A markers, there have been some bug fixes related to those, but you still need to run the L4A processor because otherwise they will not be computed. Also in the website, if you want to filter by the time interval, I don't think it's working right now. And finally, you might have some issues uploading the LPs if you have multiple seasons on the site. That I don't think that happens every time, but in some conditions, depending on how your seasons are structured in the year, you might overwrite a single piece. So thanks, and I think I can give the floor back to Dan.
So how can you install or update the system if you want to run it? So if it's your first installation, so you need to download the Sen4CAP distribution from the website. There are the distribution, but also the SRTM, SWBD dataset, and the GIPP files for the pre-processing of the Sentinel-2 data. You can follow the installation procedure described in the system user manual. So we upload also a new system user manual with this new version with all the information, and specifically for the system installation, where it says how to install it by creating an account, download the system, and install all the component of the system, and then you need just to configure a few things such as the provider account and the data source. And if you have already an installation, you can update your system So you also need to download the distribution from the Sen4CAP website, and then it's quite easy. You just need to run the script update in order to switch to this new version of the system. But some of the processed data, already processed data, might be a bit slower or a bit disturbed in the visualization, since it was already processed, but normally everything is working fine. And the pro-processing of the image is stopped, because everything is stopped when the system is updated. So you will need to sometimes relaunch some of the processor that was already running on the system when you are updating. So it's better to look at if there is anything running at the moment before doing the updates. But that's all. And then you have this new version available on your system. That's all for me.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Laurentiu. I don't know if you have questions. There are some questions in the chat. I think some of them were already answered by Cosmin, who explained that it was possible to launch L3B and L4C via a console, and he explains how it is possible. There is also a question about the L4C processor and the detection, the harvest detection. The question is from Dominique Laurent from IGN France. I don't know, from the consortium, I don't know if Lubos can unmute, or someone from his team, or if not, Diane. I'm just checking if they're... Okay, so this was a question about the accuracy of the harvest detection. So the harvest detection is, if I'm correct, is done by week, and so you get the detection at the week level, not at the date level. And yes, there are some validation which has been done, and which are, the validation is documented in the validation report that you can find on the website, and it characterizes a bit more the accuracy in the different countries where we had data to validate, but usually at let's say at the accuracy is quite good with 1 week of interval. If I'm correct, I need to go back to the validation report, but this is what I have in mind. So if you usually at 1 week step, this is the accuracy is quite good for the harvest detection. So there was another question, maybe for you, Diane, from Vasil Fasilev about the mowing and the grazing detection. Which data is more useful, Sentinel-1 or Sentinel-2? They need to be used together, but he would like, he knows that they need to be used together, but he would like to have your opinion about which sensor is the most useful.
The mowing in Sen4CAP is really detected with Sentinel, is detected with Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2, and using Sentinel-1 only is the confidence is lower, and for the grazing, actually I don't really know about Sentinel-1 using used for grazing, but we saw that we have a lot of false detection with the mowing detection algorithm, so that are actually due to grazing. So we have detection of the mowing that could also be due to grazing, due to the decrease of the vegetation. But also, yeah, I would use Sentinel-2 for the grazing, or the LAI or something like that, but I don't know. I hope it's answered your question.
Yeah. And there is a last question, which is about the pre-processing of Sentinel-2. From which cases would you advise Maya, and from which cases do you advise Sen4CAP? So this is a very difficult question. and I think there is no magic answer. So what we noted that, this is that the cloud detection is a bit better with using Maya than using Sen4CAP. So I'm really talking here about the cloud detection, not the atmospheric correction. And so in countries or in regions where the cloud cover is significant, we advise using Maya. We did some tests in some of our pilot countries using first Maya 1 year and the year after using Sen4CAP. And we, let's say, we could see the impact of residual clouds that were not correctly detected. And so that are present in the time series when you run the mowing detection or the let's say the agricultural practices monitoring, which is really a time series monitoring algorithm. We can see that there is an impact of these non-detected clouds. But this is let's say our experience with these two algorithms. And maybe we can have a last question from Bastian about a more detailed description about the use of the APIs in Sen4CAP. And so we agree that the documentation is not yet at the right level for this services API, and we are working on that. So as soon as we get some documentation, we will publish it on GitHub and on the website. So we are working on it, but we did not want to delay the delivery of the version 3 anymore. There was a last question about the tillage detection. I think that we can address for the tillage detection, not linked to the harvest. This is not planned to make this evolution no. So there is the possibility to, let's say, submit new use cases or submit requests for modifications. We will come back to that later. And so maybe this can be done in this context. But as a, let's say, general evolution to decouple the tillage detection and the harvest detection, this is not planned so far. I propose to stop here the questions about the new version 3. If you have other questions, feel free to use the chat. We will come back to that at the end of the webinar. And now we can, let's say, go to our next topic and our next speaker, which is Gerhard Triebnig from EOX. I will give you the control. Let me, give me 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see your slide.
Very good. Thank you.
We can hear you. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you to you, Sophie, and to the Sen4CAP project for the opportunity to give an update on the EO-Widget initiative and to present the EO-Widget state of play. We, that is, as you can read at the top right, is Stefan Achtsnit from EOX, David Kolitzus from GeoVille, and myself, Gerhard Triebnig. We will present in outlines what's going on around the services that are being addressed by the EO-Widget in the next 15 minutes. And we must be quick, but as you know, the slide material will be made available on the Sen4CAP website. Why are we appearing here? Because the EO-Widget services have Sen4CAP inside, as you will hear later. In a very compact form, I would like to characterize EO-Widget as being a set of satellite-based monitoring services, or more specifically, services which are flexibly responding to requirements for checks by monitoring and of the area monitoring system being established by member states who operate the integrated administration and control system, IACS, in the context of the Common Agricultural Policy. EO-Widget provides to CAP paying agencies product APIs and web GUI widgets for integration with these IACSs and in the way the paying agencies individually want it. And EO-Widget is a collaboration of industrial providers along the value chain, and this collaboration is open and supposed to be optimally configurable to meet the paying agency's local needs based on generic or global services provided by the EO-Widget resources. The presentation very quickly will give you a project overview where we stand, the status of EO-Widget. We'll report about the first countrywide proof of concept and scalability exercise performed in Austria for the 2020 and 2021 season. Then there will be a short introduction on how to embark on EO-Widget if a paying agency is interested, or if a contractor is interested to get involved. And then there will be an outlook, what is coming next, in particular related to the new products according to the new or latest, let's say, still in draft form, issued IX regulations. And then a summary of EO-Widget propositions. Here, I would like to pass the ball to David, who will introduce the project very quickly to you.
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me well. Otherwise, please interrupt me. Thank you, Gerhard and Sophie, for this opportunity. Although it's EO-Widget is more than a project, it's an endeavor and a mission we're having here. But there's a project aspect of that we need to mention. It's a co-funding, so it's a business incubation. So the goal must be and is an operational service. It's not research, but focus on the implementation and of operational services. And we see a big need and the concept of these widgets together with microservice and flexibility and implementation as a well-working combination here. This goes on for 2 years as a minimum, but we strive for longer operational services. And if you look at bottom left, there's the timeline, and we are already close to the end of 2021 in the, let's say, generalization phase, but we are a bit ahead of schedule and actually already starting in the expansion into the market. So that's also why we have the open call for you to join as a stakeholder. And on the right-hand side, you can see these are declared stakeholders and partners, so stakeholders who signed either a letter of commitment or letter of interest, but many others interested one way or another are also part of the audience here today. So we really follow this idea of this open value chain because we see that they will not be the one-fits-all solution, and it's just too diverse, and also the contractual things in each member state might be so different that we need to have this flexibility. Gerhard, if you go to the next slide. We are building on Sen4CAP mainly because they have an operating tool that we can use, and maybe even more importantly, they set a standard, kind of standard for product specification. So a set of product that are well known, identified, and the customers can work with, and we can specify, maybe adapt them if needed. So if you have followed Sen4CAP, this is the overall workflow within the system, and it is quite complex because it's quite a complex task to accomplish. But if you have a tool, you need to take care of every step from downloading, pre-processing to the final product and visualization yourself. What we propose, and this next slide, Gerhard, is a simplification that each of these blocks can be replaced actually by as a service. So we're going from the idea of a tool that you get into your hand into a well-defined SLA-based service that you can acquire just as a something that you subscribe to and get what you agreed with in the contract. This means a managed IT cloud, which is secure for also uploading your Apple's declaration data, getting access to your specified data products, and also you can have very specified web GUIs, where also the concept of widgets is, let's say, most prominent. That's why we're here in the Sen4CAP webinar, because we are building up on this and expanding and customizing it. The next slide is one slide on what we have done and achieved in operational or pre-operational monitoring products for our beta user, which is the Agrarmarkt Austria. And we have by now nearly two full seasons covered. What do we mean by fully covered is that we have all level products. So level 3 products we say are the marker databases input, NDVI and coherence data. But focus, of course, on the level 4 products, crop type, grassland, and harvest. But not a once delivery end of season, but at least for 2021, this was monthly updated in season. So real monitoring of what is happening with a couple of weeks delay. But this is not a exercise at the end of the season, but real monitoring. And actually for the 2020 season, we looked even at a 16 months period. So we have covered more than 28 months of data for all the products. With monthly changed product, but of course also with monthly updated declaration data. So as you know, these also changed. So we're really making a pre-operational monitoring exercise here, together with access of all the products via API, direct database access, and visualization, and together with a quality report, which of course is highly valued. And by that, to the next slide.
Yeah, you have to be quick with the introduction of the products.
Exactly. So this, I will just leave it maybe for you to read when you have time. The main product starting point is always the cultivated crop type map for 1.6 million parcels of the 2.6 we delivered for more than 60 different crop groups. A result done with Maya pre-processing. This might be useful to know, with quite sufficient, quite high accuracies. Quite satisfying. On the next slide, we go to the grassland. Also here, we have managed to monitor Sentinel-1 and 2 between April and end of August, up to 4 mowing events distributed all over area, which is quite a challenging terrain with quite a diversity in pretty much every parameter. And also the harvest detection, we managed to monitor more than 600,000 parcels, and for 86% of those we detected a harvest. As a note, this is not expected to be 100%. There are a few classes where a harvest is not necessarily needed, and we have shown them here per crop type. So we see from many crop types we see a harvest for each parcel, for others not, and this is a validation report that we also share with the customer. And there's an optimization and also an in situ validation ongoing, how accurate this is also in time. A new product, this is actually we developed because we saw the need for it, and a simplification. It's a crop cover bare soil exposure, so it looks for time periods of a parcel where it's either covered with or either is bare soil or it has some green cover of plants over the time, and this serves as a substitute for the NFC catch crop permanent grassland fallow land. It's a simplification for us and for the customer, and serves at least the Austrian use cases very well. And the color indication here is also gives information how certain this information is. So a dark red is very certain that it's bare soil, whereas in the overlapping yellow region there's the threshold you can define above which we say this is green cover and not, and this is to identify bare soil exposure, for example, for your local regulations. But yeah, I give back to Gerhard, and thank you.
Now, since you have seen the evolutions and the proof of concept and the scalability proven for the Austrian case, and we as EO-Widget initiative feel comfortable now and capable to also invite a larger number of paying agencies or contractors to embark on EO-Widget, and we can provide this support. And what we're working on, keeping the threshold very low as possible in order to get into the EO-Widget. And what you see here is an attempt of a roadmap, so a step-by-step mechanism to get on board. In the following slides, Stefan Achtsnit will lead you through these 5 steps in order to introduce you what you would get. And as you see here, as I said, lowering the threshold, there are free demos prepared and available for individual paying agencies or contractors, and we have attractive possibilities to get on board. I move on now to give the floor to Stefan.
Yeah, thanks, Gerhard. I hope you can hear me as well.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Perfect. So let's drive directly down the road. Gerhard just showed down together. So the first step in the onboarding journey is technically it seems to be a quite simple step. So the paying agency provides the GSA dataset. We give them a workspace where the data is ingested, and then we can just visualize the data in a GIS similar style in our web application. So you can see the parcel geometries, you can see the declarations and some additional information. For example, this is a small parcel or not, based on some GRC definition, for example. Yeah. And as said before, on the technical side, an easy step, but I guess there are a lot of different stakeholders, people involved to get this initial step done. Yeah. So, but as soon as you are there, this is necessary to get onboarded on our cloud workspace in a secure manner and have the data there, and all the data products, as you will see in the upcoming steps, will also making it to the workspace. So this is the central place to get everything delivered. So next slide, please, Gerhard.
Well, here is the link to the public demo. We invite you to come to see a live example and play with the system yourself at this stage. You see the URL here. Next step.
Thanks. So here, quite the opposite. So in that case, I would say it's technically quite challenging, but we try to make the step to get these EO-derived data products as simple, as easy as possible for the paying agencies. So they have to define an EOI, they provide some additional configuration, some grouping of the crop types, for example, but then everything else is outsourced to the service provider, to the contractor, and to the EO-Widget ecosystem. So this is really a managed service offering, and what you get there is both via API and also, as you can see, in a visual manner via the Agri application. You get on the one hand the signals visualized in a chart view, and you get the data products as you are interested in: the crop type map, the harvest, the mowing events, and the crop cover product. And as you can see in the Agri application here, we have opened for the grassland mowing the parcel explorer. There you select the parcel. On the right hand in the chart window, you get some signals specific for this data product visualized. In that case, this is a Sentinel-1. There we have the NDVI and also some coherence values from Sentinel-1. And you get additional further information depending on your use case. And all what you can see here is also what I introduced till now. This is just the Copernicus data, Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, but there's also an option to include commercial data like Planet Fusion, for example, just for small parcels. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we have the data now in our system, and what's important now is to verify the quality of the data. And so the paying agency, usually they come up with some thresholds. They also formulate compliance rules for the different lanes, and we provide different tooling there to help them to check, to benchmark the system. Also for the crop type map, I think this is quite some common practice now to have the confusion metrics. They have one score, the omission and commission report, and all of the things, they are visualized in a dynamic manner, so you can even customize these reports on demand. For example, you can switch between absolute numbers of parcels or use an area-based calculation. For the mowing product, for example, one possible report we provide is the mowing event drill down, where you can see in the rows the different crops, and then with the different colors visualize the number of mowing events which were detected already for this kind of crop. Harvest detection, as what we provide here, for example, is also an example where you can select certain crops, and then you see over the different weeks the number of detected harvest events. And so this gives some overview during the year for the crops which are harvested quite early and others which are quite late in the season. And all of this is then brought together in the different traffic light visualization, the real conformance checks where you match the predictions, the quality of the products against the compliance rules as defined by you by the paying agency.
Stefan, I'm sorry, we have to speed up. We are
okay, I'll speed up. Also, as said before, compliance rules, there you have conclusive and non-conclusive parcels. In an easy case, if it's conclusive, you more or less validate the product and can visually see, here we have 3 mowing events detected. This looks reasonable. But next slide, next click, please. In the case of a non-conclusive case, then it's up to you. You have the possibility to judge yourself. So we are providing an expert judgment tool. We try to provide as much information as needed to give you some help, and it's up to you then to do the best out of this information. So the whole system you see here, this finally will work out in some kind of workflow tool to manage your tasks. And so we come to the last step. What you can see here is you have on the bottom, we have a quite complex object model in the meantime achieved. And what's possible is to connect to the data in the cloud workspace to incorporate it back into your system. And there we provide APIs. So this can be a Python client library, but an HTTP API is also possible. Thanks.
Okay, so very quickly, David, the outlook, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, as we have seen, there are new IX regulations discussed, so the product portfolio will be extended, and the one we are currently emphasizing and planning on implementing are an imperviousness and a change indicator and a homogeneity marker. These can change still, so there are still discussions ongoing, as you know as well. The first one focusing on the presence of ineligible area, imperviousness, so a soil property, maybe a built-up area in the arable land, in the declared area. There might also be certain changes happening between different land uses, which we need to monitor. This will also be covered. The specifications, we have a good understanding, but they might change according to regulations, and we will be open to that. The last one is the presence of non-homogeneous land use. The homogeneity is itself an indication for various use cases, also for the ineligibility, and will be very likely be directly implemented, but might be adapted as well if that's needed. This is an outlook that we're actually extending our product portfolio here, given that the requirements of the new IX regulation do put the need out there. Going to the
we have already consumed about 20 minutes, and we would skip the summary and invite everybody to read what is in the slides and get in touch with us with questions. And I would like to pass back to Sophie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerhard, Stefan, and David. And sorry for for forcing you to be within 20 minutes. There've been many things to say and to show, and so congratulations for your achievement also. This is really nice to see what you were able to build, starting from Sen4CAP and adding then your own developments, the interface, and so on. So very interesting. I don't know if there are some questions. I saw 2 questions in the chat for you. Technical questions about the algorithms, maybe. The first is from Peter Rogemans about the bare soil algorithm that you have shown. Is it based on Sentinel-1 or Sentinel-2 or both of them?
Right now, the bare soil exposure is on Sentinel-2, but works for VHR data, optical data as well. So we're saying Sentinel-2, but we should work similarly on Planet Fusion data. Sentinel-1 is not yet integrated, but is of course part of our development. See the additional value we can get. This is in the pipeline, but for now it's an optical based approach. And the second question, maybe if I directly take over, links to snow cover. The good thing about this crop cover bare soil exposure, it works on both on mask data, so you can use Centaur and Maya data mask and just put it on top to derive this interpolated phenology curve. But as you can see, it also works with unmasked data, because we know that masks are not perfect. They will always miss, for example, clouds, cloud shadows, especially. I mean, Maya is optimized for also cloud shadow, but still you might miss one. And even here you see a few dots with a very low NDVI. And there's kind of the assumption that this is very likely unphysical because it's too strong of a diversion, and there's a higher NDVI value just after that. So this is kind of serves as a filtering algorithm as well. So single individual events which are not measured or identified just as one snow event or one cloud shadow are actually filtered out rather nicely, and you have also control where there are a few parameters that we can expose and adapt, and if you have validation data, this can be tuned to be as precise as possible. I mean, there will always be cases that you miss. This is the reality of optical data, remote optical data, but it's quite a let's say a strong but yet simple method, and so far works rather nicely for us, and promising results.
And if I may answer the question of Dominique Laurent on the cost model to paying agencies, I can answer yes, indeed. We do have subscription price lists, but we prefer actually to do the first steps in the free demo style in order to better understand the requirements of the individual paying agency and the constellation of paying agency contractors, support contractors, etc. And through the joint, let's say, embarkment or onboarding, we specify more can specify more details on the actual prices.
Thank you very much to all of you. I propose to here close the questions about this topic, but feel free to continue the discussion in the chat, and we can certainly come back at the end. I would like to just say a few words about the last topic of the webinar, which is the open call for the new use cases. So if you remember the last webinar, I explained you that we had the chance to be funded by ESA for more than 1 year, more than one additional year, so until the end of 2022. And within this extension, we will make evolving the markers database to serve to support new use cases. And so the rationale behind these new use cases is that is here in the slide. So you can see on the left part the kind of calendar and about the focus. So the new use cases should ideally support the transition towards the performance regulation. So not only the checks by monitoring, but also moving towards the regulation, the performance regulation. Of course, if you identified a key use case which is missing in the current Sen4CAP and which is related to the compliance, of course, this can also be considered. But we will really play on the two sides, so the current check and the performance regulations. So for the new use cases that we will select, we ask an active participation of the paying agency. And what we mean by active participation is first that the paying agency is sharing some in situ data to perform the research and to validate the results, and also that the paying agency is involved in the validation, in the assessment of the products that we will propose. About the use case, so you can see a bit at the timeline on the left. So the call will be open now. It will last 1 month, and then we will select the different use cases with ESA. There will be between 3 to 5 use cases selected, depending on the complexity of the use cases. And then we will start for each use case. So the data collection, preparation, some research to propose different solutions, and the validation of the different solutions with the paying agency. So this research and this assessment, we plan to work on it during 6 months. So the use cases that you submit should be feasible within this time frame. Why we keep it to 6 months? Because after that, there will be some time to implement the solution that has been selected with the paying agency as an additional Sen4CAP module, and we also need to work on the documentation of these new modules. So this is a bit how it will work. So when you submit, if you plan to submit a use case, so there will be only 3 to 5 use cases selected. And so we ask you to propose use cases which can be of interest for more than one region or country. Not something very specific to one region in one country, but applications that have a wider interest to the wider community. And one last statement, which is important also, is that in terms of budget, there is no budget for the paying agency. So to support the, let's say, participation or to support the in-situ data collection. So what we can offer is only the manpower from the Sen4CAP consortium to do the benchmarking, the validation, and then the implementation of the algorithm into a new module. So this is for the framework of these new use cases. And now for the open call. So we can say that this will be open right after the webinar. And we expect from you a proposal. There is nothing very complicated. It shall not be long. So in the proposal, we ask you to detail who is submitting the proposal. So paying agency, optionally associated stakeholders. So you can see here that the proposal can be submitted from a paying agency or a private company or a research institution, as long as this is also involving a paying agency. So we ask the link with the paying agency. So coming back to the content of the proposal, we ask you, of course, to define the topic of research you are interested in and to make a clear link with the new CAP. To propose an area of interest, and we propose an area covering maximum 4 Sentinel-2 tiles to detail the in-situ data that are or that will be available for the research and the validation, and how you could be involved for the assessment of the product during the period January-June 2022. So the proposal, you see, this is nothing very complicated. And so we ask you to submit your proposal at the latest on the 15th of December this year as a PDF file to the email of the project. And then we will take more or less 1 month with ESA to assess the different proposal and to make the selection. And the selection will be announced in January next year. And then we will directly start the research. So this is the plan. I don't know if there are any questions on that. If not, maybe the final slide with the next event. So the system version 3 has been delivered, released. Do not forget that we are available on the forum to answer your questions. Depending on the amount of questions we will have, if there are some topics that come back regularly, we could organize the question and answer session. That will depend really on what we see on the forum. There will be the next webinar planned in January after the selection of the use cases, where we will summarize a bit the system 3 and announce the use cases. And that's it. So this is done for the content of the webinar, and so I open the floor to questions, and I already thank you for your attention during this hour. So there is a question from Bastien. The new use cases will be part of version 4. So I don't know which version it will be, but the new use cases will be part of the next version, yes. Each new use case will be implemented as a module building on the database, on the markers database, and so that the different modules will be open source and included in the package and available for everybody. And the idea is also that the markers database can evolve based on the new use cases. If we have to add new markers or new new markers, new content in the database, that will be done. You are very quiet today. Feel free to unmute if you have any question. For those who do not have questions, I propose to close the webinar here. We will remain connected a few more minutes if you want to continue the discussion, but already thank you very much for your attendance, and see you within 2 months for the next webinar and before on the forum or for the use case proposal. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.